Good afternoon, folks. It is the afternoon of September the 10th, after last night's disastrous excuse for a debate, which was completely absent of ethics or epistemology that could have rendered it meaningful. One of the great problems that we're facing is that people want answers. And unfortunately, the nature of the answers that they want are overly simplistic. So I'm going to try to dive down into this issue and look at ways that we can do some problem solving and look at things more rationally so that we can come up with some viable way of knowing a provable path forward. The left is always talking about progress. But of course, their great fault is that they cannot statistically prove that they are creating progress. So let's look at the method, the known methods for creating processes which improve over time. And indeed, it is called continuous improvement. At the debate last night, a chap from let's get the guy's name here. Kian Bexta, editor-in-chief of Counter Signal. I'm sure some of you have been watching his channel. Put the link to it below. But he asked the Prime Minister about the Wuhan Institute of Virology and our relationship with them, given the fact that we had sent viral material to them, and the Chinese scientists had been working at our laboratory in Winnipeg that had done such. So this is how I would have phrased that gentleman's question had it been up to me. I would have been more direct at last night's debate if I had been given the chance. Mr. Prime Minister, what is the government's relationship to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and why did we ship, according to the CBC, deadly living Ebola and Nipah virus to them? Are you aware that there is scientific evidence that there are RNA strands from those viruses in hashtag COVID-1984? Why does your government consistently refuse to provide the public with direct answers, given the fact Canada may well have had a role in creating a deadly pathogen which has been unleashed against humanity with enormous cost, both in human life and resources? We need answers, not your assurances that everything is fine when it clearly isn't. So what I want to speak with you about today is the most common pathological trait among human beings. It's driven by narcissism, and that is control. A narcissist seeks to control others because they, due to their magical thinking, believe themselves to be so clever and so entitled, and you to be so inferior, that for your own good, this is how they convince themselves that it's moral. For your own good, they must manipulate your life and force you to do things that you are otherwise not inclined to do. In fact, they have even had the unmitigated gall to tell us that we will own nothing and we will be happy. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not happy at the many things the government has taken from us, from me personally, from my wife, over the last year and a half to 2 years of this nonsense. And indeed, it long predates that, because there is nothing that the government would not tax, control, all for our own good. This is the galling part about it, that these narcissists are so driven by magical thinking that they have deluded themselves into believing in their own pathology, that it is actually for the good of others. So that is the most common pathological trait in humankind. But the second is that a narcissist cannot survive, can't exist without flying monkeys. They need to create others who will come to their beck and call and who seek their approval. We really need to understand how sick, pathologically sick this is, and how psychologically damaging it is. The entire Western world is now driven by flying monkeys who agree with their leading narcissists, when all that would be needed to remove those narcissists from power, from taking what is not theirs, would be to stop believing their narcissistic lies. And this is the great challenge. So I'm going to do a series on this about problem solving. I'm going to speak to my audience about asking 5 whys and how that works. Ishikawa diagrams or fishbone diagrams. And these are simple ways to determine if a policy, if a program is actually functional. I spoke to a young lady the other week who had just defended her thesis, her master's thesis, in e-learning. And I congratulated her, and I asked how it was possible for her to develop the statistical proof that this model actually functioned. I mean, I can say that I want a gold-plated toilet seat. You may agree with me that having gold-plated toilet seats would be a wonderful thing. But if all the things we are doing do not result in us getting gold-plated toilet seats, then doubling down on all the efforts that have failed is actually quite delusional. And although that's a poor analogy, this is what's happening today. That young lady had not provided any statistical proof that her e-model functioned. Neither does our government provide any statistical proof that the things that they are doing to progress society, to create their heaven on earth, are actually improving society. Anyone who has been alive long enough to remember what it was like prior to this mindset taking over our universities and our school systems knows that we were much freer and much better off back then. The only way for humanity to progress is for each individual to become fully individuated and self-realized. What they're actually doing, they're creating a gingerbread house where the wicked witch is inviting you to come into the house to fatten you up so she can eat you. And this is the system that we're creating. It is absolutely psychologically bent and parasitical. So we're going to look at problem solving in my next few videos. And I invite you to get involved in this discussion. Tell me if you've ever heard about these principles before. Tell me if you've ever heard about continuous improvement or Six Sigma or Shannon problem solving. But it is time that we stop the magical thinking of a child and start to think like adults. Last night's debate proved that we don't have any adults in the room. And the one possible adult that should have been in the room, Max Bernier, was excluded from the debate. That is because the pathological narcissists in charge are terrified of individual liberty and freedom. I am a classical liberal. I would never tell you what to do, and I am not going to be told by you what I am to do. This is why I don't agree with the COVID passports. Now, my wife and I are fully vaccinated, but that was our choice. But I do not agree in dividing society based on our private choices of what we are to do with our own bodies. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. Please think about these things as you proceed to the election booth and ask yourself, which government do we have that will best provide maximum individual liberty, limited constitutional government, peace, order, and good government? Thanks, folks. God bless you. Have a great weekend.